I've been told by everybody up on this roof that they're all off the roof. I am on the roof of exposure 4. Got fire through the roof of the 5 million, the entire rear section.
Now remember, given the Mayday, has he been accounted for? Okay.
610B, that was the Mayday, 610B.
I'm here. We got a fire. 1.5-story, single-family dwelling. Fire shown from the 2nd floor. Give me a second alarm on this.
Up to the top floor, I got people hanging out the top floor windows with a baby.
Commercial building, a lot of fire, a lot of smoke. Go ahead and strike a 3rd alarm on my orders on this.
Got people on the front fire escape here with windows vented below them. We need somebody up there.
Yeah, let them know we got a job. I'm pulling up now. 2nd alarm, I got a 1-story single-family frame. Heavy fire showing from the attic.
So we're using all hands. We got 1 line stretch, fire on the 4th floor. 2nd line being stretched. Primary searches are underway.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to our Fire Engineering Podcast, The Command Post. I'm Chief Rick Lasky, along with my best buddy, Chief John Sulka. And we've got a pretty good topic for you tonight. Pretty serious topic. But before we get to that, John, hey, FDIC, I know they slid it. You know, they rescheduled for August, and then they, rescheduled it again. And you and I were talking about this. I think we're both kind of glad because the first one, they wanted to put this on with so many people asking for it, and it ended up being a Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. And the big thing, John, I was conflicting with a couple other conferences in Indianapolis, and the opening ceremonies for the first 2 big room days was going to have to be over the JW Marriott, which is fine. But, everything was kind of, here and there, and we were competing with 2 other conferences and exhibit space. So they bumped it back to the first week there. Like I said, I know you and I talked about the other day. It makes perfect sense. I know it's a hassle, but we just got to get past, everything going on with COVID and all this stuff and get things back to normal, if you will. But for our listeners, August 2nd through the 7th, it's back to a Monday through Saturday setup. John, let me run through real quick. So Monday, John and I will be doing our 4-hour Chief Officer Fire Training Program. It's 4 hours we cherry pick from the 2-day battalion chief or shift commander class, if you want to call it, the field chief officers class that we travel on the road and do with CSU and with our just ourselves. So that's gonna be Monday. I'm also doing a breakout session for the I women that day, sweating the small stuff. And then, buddy, we're signing books Wednesday, a little after 5, John, we're doing after hours with John Norman, Bobby Halton, Bill Gustin, you and me up on the stage, and no script, baby, no script, just how we like it.
It'd be great.
So that'll be good. Friday morning, we're doing a 3 degrees of Mayday. And folks, if you can't catch us at the classes, we're going to be, visiting once or twice in the Dingus Fire Company booth with our good friends, Nick Dingus and Jeff Bryant from Illinois and their company, because we love them. And but we'll be in the Fire Engineering Books booth. So catch us there. It's going to be another great conference, another great FDIC. I know it's in August, but I know everybody out there, John, is dying to get out and get to classes again. I've been seeing that lately, buddy. So off we go. We're rescheduling classes as we speak, folks. We've got a ton of stuff coming up. So reach out to John or I. You can zip over to my website at prideandownership.com. Any class that John and I do together, whether it's CSU or on our own or whatever, is posted there, as well as my Facebook page. I get that out there in the events section. So check us out there. Check out our Hump Day Hangouts on the 3rd Wednesday of every month. And we're rocking and roll. So, John, before we get started with our topic tonight, this is going to kind of lead into it. Very, very tragic. I know you had some buddies of yours because it wasn't too far from you. Recently, we had a line of duty death in Spring. How far is this was a Spring Valley firefighter. How far is that from you in Rockland?
10 or 12 miles, maybe 15, but I don't think much farther than that. Okay.
So not too far. Very tragic fire, right? A nursing home.
Oh, yeah. Working fire, high life hazard, volume of fire, gigantic building, heavy smoke addition, senior citizens basically incapacitated, time of day, everything was working against them. Amazingly, only one of the occupants of the building, died, succumbed.
That's amazing.
Dozens and dozens and dozens were rescued and removed and carried and unfortunately a single firefighter also passed, was killed in a collapse later in the operation.
Well, yeah, and I guess we're going to visit just for a moment here about Spring Valley firefighter Jared Lloyd, and right now I think we need to just briefly talk about, very importantly, but briefly about his family. John, they're doing a fundraiser for him. They're selling T-shirts to help his kids, and that everything I've seen, everything I've heard, I know you have too. What an outstanding firefighter! What an outstanding young man! What an outstanding
18
dad!
years. Not. I mean, a young man, yes, but not a kid.
Oh.
33-year-old man with 2 kids and a wife who was pregnant with the third. 15 years in the volunteer fire department. One of the real staples. One of the real regular guys of the company. Has been around for a long time and has experience and has training. And they said he was just one of them go-to guys.
Oh God, it's hard to lose any firefighter. Obviously, we talk about that. It's horrific when we lose anybody. And here it is again. For our listeners, the fundraiser they're doing right now, you have until I think till April 24th is the deadline. If you go to my Twitter account, if you Twitter, I retweeted it from firefighter closecalls.com, Billy Goldfeder's website, firefighterclosecalls.com. Or you could just go to the website and I'll say this, and you can play back this tape if you want, supporting let's start, supporting SV firefighter Jared Lloyd, supporting S like Sam, V like Victor, all right, for Spring Valley. So supporting SV firefighter Jared Lloyd itemorder.com/sale. All right, you can go to that, play back this tape if you need to hear that, or go to my Twitter account and check out my posts. Please do. The T-shirts are worth it, and all capital all right, the proceeds go to his family. So God bless you, Jared. You made a difference, buddy. So you made a difference. So John, you and I were talking about this. Actually, that line of duty, that Mayday, because several Maydays are not, and there's been a couple others since then, and even before that, they're kind of running pretty close together. And I think you agree. I think more people are calling the Maydays now because they're being trained in it, they're recognizing it, and so on and so forth. But at the same time, I think I don't know if we're letting our guard down or we're doing something that I think we're expecting to get out of a jam when a Mayday occurs a little bit too easily or too often. And I don't know if I guess the other day, when we were talking, your exact words, and maybe that's what we should call the title of this particular show, this podcast. We were talking, you said, hey, not everybody survives a Mayday. Not everyone survives a Mayday. So let's spend a few minutes, I guess, and talk about that, buddy, about if you're okay with that, about the factors that roll into, not everyone survives a Mayday. So go ahead and start things. I mean,
And listen, if we were talking to our friend about with the Mayday project, he has collected so much information on Maydays. If we had that right in front of us, Don Abbott, we could start pulling stuff out of that report about, and just off the top of our heads, we both know, of the hundreds of Maydays that are transmitted by people, of all the different situations, all the different types of buildings that people are in, all the different levels of experience that they have, all the different times of day, before midnight, after midnight, private dwellings, commercial buildings. The fact of the matter is it's 2021. American Fire Service is right on top of RIT and right on top of Mayday and right on top of a lot of stuff. And still, everybody that gives a Mayday, a transit Mayday, does not survive. Now listen, that's just like saying everybody that goes and works at a structural fire does not survive. That is true. However, Mayday is a call for help. Mayday is a firefighter saying, I think I might die. Someone come and help me. I mean, if you really wanted to break it down to a plain English thing, right? Fighting a fire, you could just be in there fighting a fire. Something could happen to you. You could be dead in a minute and never have said Mayday and never called for Mayday. The fact that you call for Mayday means you've already acknowledged that there's a problem, that it's a life-threatening problem. It's already an established procedure and an established word. There's already a team outside that's already trained and designated and deliberately standing by in case this happens. So we've got the whole stages set for success, yet it doesn't always happen.
Well, and how many times have we said this? We've trained and we've trained. Well, let me back this up for a second, John. you've served in the role of an incident commander now for decades, okay, both in the Valleys and in the Bronx and in New York City, all over. Both of us know some pretty incredible bosses, some incredible leaders, some incredible fireground leaders that have had Maydays that haven't turned out like you see. So, God bless the ones that do that, right away. I think a lot of people think, John, when there's a Mayday, so-and-so screwed up or this chief or whatever. And it's like, no, that's not the case. I know some pretty incredible bosses that have had things go wrong. And so let me ask you your thoughts on that. Your experiences, because you and I've talked about this and what I've said to people that have confided in me about after something doesn't end well and they have a line of duty death. What do you say to that chief officer, John, that had a Mayday that not everyone survived? Because like I said, that you and I right now can rattle off chiefs in our heads right now, and that we know that have had a line of duty death incident that they were managing the overall incident. What do you say to them to I don't want to say console, but you know what I'm saying? You get you're talking to him and he's like, John, man, I've had some close calls with guys. I had a Mayday 10 years ago, but I thought everything was going fine, and all of a sudden, boom, 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 and before I know it, it's done, and we got one less guy going home. I mean,
Right.
And I don't want to say there's no one at fault, but I'm just saying, what do you say to that chief?
Right. And that's not what we're saying. We're not here saying, because some Maydays, some guys still die even if they give a Mayday, and we're not, like you just said, we're not placing blame or fault.
No.
However, something probably did prevent it from happening. I hesitate to use the term something went wrong, but some condition, some roadblock probably prevented the firefighter from being rescued. Firefighter gives a Mayday and dies in a fire. That's not the designed outcome. The design outcome for that word Mayday, Mayday, Mayday is you get out. You give it early enough. You give it loud enough. You give it clear enough. You give who, what, where. If everything the RIT team was there early. The RIT team was properly staffed. The RIT team was properly deployed. They weren't all spread out on the scene when it suddenly happened. So a lot of things have to fall into place properly. And sometimes one or two or a couple of them or several of them don't. I mean, every fire scene is a very liquid scene. Every fire scene has got a lot of stuff happening, a lot of different things, a lot of different people, a lot of different companies. And then there's the unknown, there's the fire, the location, the volume. So there's so many things happening at the scene of a fire that any one fire where a Mayday is given could present the right set of conditions that could prevent the Mayday from not being successful.
And right there's a message. You just said it. There's a message for the incident commanders out there, incident commanders, and for the company officers. You've said it 1,000 times. There is no one fire. Not every fire is the same. Every incident we go to, same buildings on the same block, presents you with different scenarios, different. We've talked about innovative in our class, and you show that picture, with the 3-story frame, and you're like, if that fire was next door tomorrow, what would be different? With the fire start, all these different things, and so I guess the message there, John, is to anyone listening. Hey, you're a firefighter, your company officer, your chief. You know what? Every single time you go out, you had to have your game face on and be thinking that one little thing could be different, and it changes the outcome. That's a great
Even
point.
The same buildings, Harlem firefighters, Lower East Side firefighters going to old law tenements. Man, I bet the thousands of old law tenements in my 20 years here in 11 truck. Yeah, that's great. And you know what? Everyone is different. Of course, a lot of old law tenements are the same. A lot of fire travels the same way in them. A lot of the rooms are the same shape, and we have the same difficulty or the same ease in getting into or getting out of them. But there's always a couple of conditions that are changing. There's always a guy that nailed the door closed. There's always a guy that puts the couch in front of the doorway. There's always the family that has 3 families in their apartment, all subdivided, even though they're supposed to just have one family. So there's always conditions that make it. I saw an old phrase one time. It's like going into the ocean. You go to the ocean, a different day, a different day, a different day. The same ocean from the same place. And one day there's all shells in the ocean. One day there's all seaweed in the ocean. One day there's gigantic waves. They won't even let you in. The next day it's like a lake. You can see fish 20 feet out. And that's the ocean. And fighting fires is the same thing. So So Maydays are dependent on conditions, and conditions are always changing.
And it goes back to another thing that you bring up in fireground responsibility, and that is the line of duty death linked chain, where you've said so many different times, we both have talked about it, cut one link in that chain, and you quite possibly don't have a Mayday, don't have a line of duty, there's serious injury. You know, I when I slide back for a second, you know, you made me think of something when you're talking about, we were talking about, like, what do you say to the chief that, you know, not everything goes the same. And you said things happen. There are things that happen, whether you think, if you're a control freak, you might be in the wrong business being the fire service. You know, and I'm not saying a good firm incident commander and that you control your incident, but if you think everything is going to work exactly like you think it did in the training room, right, John, with the little simulator, you're in for a rude awakening. Dr. Shea, John, when I was a paramedic, when I was a young paramedic, I got frustrated because it was like, I was going like I was a busy medic, and I was going like a year, and I hadn't saved. I mean, you know, I had a lot of full arrests, cardiac people in accidents, trauma. And I watched emergency. You and I both watched, you know, Emergency Squad 51 and Johnny Roy, and they zap a guy 3 times and the guy sits up, he's talking to him in the hospital. I'm like, what is that going to happen for me? Why is this stuff going on? And Dr. Shea, legendary trauma doctor at Loyola Hospital, we were co-system when I was a paramedic. What you know, I had to sit down with him and talk to him. And you know what Johnny said? He goes, Rick, you know, they're called non-survivable injuries. And he's one of the most well-respected trauma doctors in the world, not just in Chicago, in the world. He said they're called non-survivable injuries. He goes, I could have my whole team, my whole staff, I could have them on the table, in the OR, everybody, the elite of the elite there, and nothing's going to change the outcome. And you just kind of not hinted, but made that point that you could line up everything like you you could have the RIT team, you could have everybody in place, the Mayday's called, you got radios, you have people, you have staff, you have water, you have everything. And God almighty, things happen sometimes, and it's just not going to go your way, right?
So true. So true. And I mean, I just jotted down like 5 or 6 what I call like roadblocks to a successful RIT operation. You know, one is fire conditions. Sometimes a guy can give a Mayday and it can still be unreachable. Something flashes over, a room lights up, and all of a sudden a guy gives a Mayday. Now you know, and both of us have talked about Mayday extensively in our careers and in our travels, right? Obviously, we want the Mayday and the RIT team to have a hose line available too. Most RIT teams at most fires do not have a hose line available. They say, oh, I'll use the first 2 engine, or we have the standby engine here. And if suddenly a Mayday come out, the place is lighting up on us, we need help. I'm telling you, it'd be a minute before somebody could find a hose line and get it ready for the RIT team. So sometimes fire conditions, sometimes the staffing of the RIT. You know, you pull up with a 2 or a 3 person RIT team. I'm not saying it's not going to work. It's better than saying, the hell with it. We only get 2. We're not going to have a RIT team. You're still better to have a 2-person team than none. And wait for more people to get there.
And it just, let me throw this in there because we've talked about this a bunch of times. Yes, 2 people, that's pretty slim. But 2 people can throw a ladder for you after the window. Right. 2 people can initiate the search. 2 people can get you the RIT pack or get you on air. 2 people can maybe get you in a place of safe refuge, close the door, get you a window. But from that point on, it's probably going to take a lot more people to finish things off. But go ahead, buddy. I'm sorry.
Right. So they may not be able to finish it, but they can get it going, and you can always augment them with people on the scene or later arriving units, right? Communication breakdown with channels and changing channels and being on this channel and being on that channel. Sometimes people give a Mayday or something and it's not heard because somebody's changed the channel.
And John, that goes back to what we said plenty of times. You know, what people forget, that this isn't a drill tower. They're not in there laying next to pallets and straw when the Mayday goes out. They're in there next to crappy ass frozen gasoline, foam and plastic furniture and stuff and everything. And they may get one chance to say Mayday something, and that's it. One chance. And if you're not listening, if you're changing channels, if you're not paying attention, if you're dispatching, you may miss the one and only, right? The one only chance. People aren't in there having whole conversations. Not usually. Some, back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. They're calling a Mayday for a reason. And it's not because, well, I've got 15 more transmissions to give you. I can. They may only get one time to call you, right?
Yes. That's why you have to be all ears when you're on a fire. Incident commander and everybody else. If you're all about listening, not talking. Obviously, we want to transmit information when necessary, but everything should be short and brief and concise. and sometimes it's not. Poor Mayday transmission. Somebody who's not well versed in Mayday, Mayday, Mayday. Pause. Wait for an answer. You know what the Mayday. Go ahead. This is ladder 1-1. I'm on the second floor with my inside team. I think I lost one of my probies. You know, who, what, where. That who, what, where rather than the Lunar. I don't want to get into it right now, Lunar, but it's obscene and it's long and it's incorrect and it's incomplete.
Well, and I'll steal your own words, and I use it all the time. I'll use it on my wife. My wife's never crawled into a burning building, never been a firefighter. The house on fire, she calls 911, and she's going to give who, what, where. She's never been trained in it. She's going to say, this is Jamie Lasky. I live at 6-8. She's going to say, what's wrong? I'm in my bedroom. It's on fire. I'm trapped. I can't get out. She's going to even give who, what, where. And she's never been.
People that don't know that get into the whole Lunar thing and start remembering, what equipment to recommend and what, crazy. Another thing is a late Mayday. Some guys are hesitant to give a Mayday, and they're thinking about it, and they're wrestling with it, and they're in distress, or they think they're lost, but they're not sure if they're lost, and now their alarm is going off, but they don't know if they should say anything because their lieutenant's working that day or because they're the junior man or the senior man. You can't give a Mayday late. When you give a Mayday late, guess who's losing? You are. You're losing all that time. That's time that people could be making their way into you to help you, and instead you're hemming and hawing, and you're it's not a good habit to get into.
In most of our Maydays, you and I have talked about this for 20 plus years, and our good friend Don Abbott has the data to back up what we've been saying. Again, the majority, not all of them, the majority of the Maydays are happening within the first 24 to 26 minutes. Shave off your response times, getting in the building, and almost all, granted, hour later, hour and a half, there's collapse and all that stuff. But the majority, John, they're in there, they're on their first tank, they're on their first bottle, their first SCBA bottle. They're in there working. They're working a line, they're crawling around searching, they're doing something. It's not like they went in, and I guess I think drilling and the drill tower, I think that's all vitally important. But there has to be some realism time-wise. Like you just said, they don't have 30 minutes to be in there. They're on fire, they're out of air, they're trapped, they're pinned, they've got a down firefighter, whatever. We don't have time to mess around with that because precious air. So like you said, if they hesitate, if they're having that conversation, if they're having a conversation with themselves, whether they should be called a Mayday or not, call the Mayday, right? Because you're wasting those seconds, like you said.
If it even enters your mind, you should be transmitting the Mayday. And you know what? I've always said, and you and I've talked about this before. I've always said the reason we don't do Mayday so good, and in general, I think that's a fair statement, is because we don't do them so much. People hesitate. There's a lot of situations where people could have given a Mayday and they don't, and they call for some kind of assistance and it's rendered to them and never gets recorded, and the Mayday never actually gets put into play. The RIT team never actually gets deployed and starts to see how it is to drag in a RIT bag. So we missed that, which brings me to my next point. The inexperienced RIT team. A lot of places have practiced on RIT. They have their RIT tools down. They know what the cache of tools is to have for the RIT to assemble outside. They know that they're going to have a Stokes there and a saw and maybe a search rope and RIT pack. But a lot of those same RIT teams have never actually been deployed at a fire. They might have even been to RIT. They might have even been the RIT team at working fires, but never actually get deployed because nobody gave a Mayday, right? So those are all missed opportunities. Obviously, they're not missed opportunities to arrive, to assemble your gear, maybe to do a size up, but they never actually get to practice in doing it. And sometimes that lack of experience will cost you time when you are actually activated, maybe for the first time or the second time. I mean, if you said, raise your hand right now, all of you that are listening, if you've been on a RIT team that was actually deployed to a Mayday, raise your hand right now. I'm looking at everybody. There's like 2 guys with their hands up right now. It's not a very common occurrence. So could you imagine if you asked how many people have been on a RIT team and deployed at 2 separate fires, deployed twice as a RIT team?
Well, and you created Get Out Alive in the same time as Saving Earl, like 1990, 1991, right around there, okay? And our goal, I know that's how you and I met. I know I have it in the letters I sent to John Norman, Sal Marchese, Donnie Haid, because I was putting it together, and Ray Hoffman already knew. Same goal you had. Our goal should be that every fire academy in the country one day will be teaching firefighter survival skills. They'll be teaching we're teaching how to rescue civilians. They'll be teaching this stuff. And you and I have talked about it all these years later. God, how cool is it to see probies, rookies, fire academies teaching the stuff that we were pushing out there and all the other things. And it's so good. But John, I think lately it's become tying knots. It's become throwing salvage covers training. It's like, hey, we went through the academy and Tuesday and Wednesday we did RIT training, and then we moved on, and then that's it. And they even get out on the job, and it's not as prevalent anymore. You don't see as many drills, and now it goes to add that to what you just said. The inexperienced RIT team training is important, but if you're not even doing the training in the first place, don't expect it to go well.
And a lot of departments limit who the RIT team is. Like New York City, fortunately, does not. New York City, every single company, but really every single truck, is potentially on board as the fast truck. There's nobody that's in or out. There's nobody that gets called more because they're really good at it or they're centrally located or better trained. Every single truck has RIT training. Every single truck on a certain number of boxes gets pulled up as the third truck. Ladder 6-1, you're the fast truck. Ladder 5-6, you're the fast truck. And they even call a dispatcher, tell them, you got ladder 5-6 coming as the fast truck. They call ladder 5-6, Bronx to ladder 5-6, go ahead. You've been designated the fast truck. Acknowledge. They make them acknowledge it, right? And that's wonderful. But there are departments and some big paid departments that have, 40 companies, 18 trucks. And 3 of those 18 trucks are the fast units, are the RIT trucks. And one of those 3 go to every work and fire. All the rest of them are not RIT trucks. They're not RIT trained. Up here in the Valleys in Orange County, there's certain designated RIT companies. And if you're not a RIT company, sometimes I say to myself, really, why would you be spending too much time on RIT stuff if you're not a RIT company, if you're never going to get called anywhere to be the RIT team? So sometimes the training is limited or too focused or too narrow. And a lot of people don't benefit from it. So you end up with a big fire department with, like I said, 18 trucks and only 3 of them are RIT trained and the rest don't train on it because they're never going to get called for it.
So you're talking, you jotted, as I say, jotted some points down as to why not everyone survives a Mayday. You talk about fire conditions, staffing for RIT team, training for the RIT team, calling the Mayday, miss Maydays, things like that, so on and so forth. Let me throw one in there, John, and ask your thoughts on this. How about the lack of a good, solid, firm, confident incident commander? Because when all hell breaks loose, forget it. Just a good working fire, a lot of times that goes well because you put good soldiers, you put good men and women on the scene. But man, the guy or gal that's holding the puppet strings, the marionette, the guy who's leading the orchestra, the incident commander, their voice, their calmness, their confidence, their radio, traffic can really dictate sometimes. Don't you believe? I know. Look, when your one firefighter said, when I hear the 1-8 pull up and I hear his name, meaning you, Chief Salka's, a voice on the radio, I know everything's going to go better. There's good, solid. Talk about the importance of having that good incident commander when the Mayday hits.
Yeah, and we all know that because we've opened the fires both in a career and volunteer fire service where you see a certain chief roll up or a certain battalion pulls up and you're like, I remember hearing Mike Lobato talk about some of the chiefs up there in Buffalo, right? He was so impressed with some of his bosses when he was a young firefighter and a company officer. And why? Because these chiefs, officers, these incident commanders, they have a command presence and they have a reputation of standing up, saying what they want, saying what they don't want, designating a RIT company. Ladder 1-1, you're a RIT team, stay right here, please. Asserting themselves. Sometimes the chief's like, okay, 1-1, all right, good, I'm glad you're here. Rather than being a little bit more assertive. And then maybe sometimes, and that's one of the things I didn't talk about yet, the RIT team getting a little distracted. 2 guys going around the back, the boss tells them, run around the back and see if you see anything in the back, and all of a sudden, now some chiefs will say, hey, no, I want everybody to stay together, a little bit more on top of things, and a little bit, and then when he wants them deployed, 11 trucks, you hear that? I'm deploying you. You're the RIT team. I just heard a Mayday on the second floor. Some guys are a little bit more rigid with that. Some guys are a little bit more, laissez-faire, a little bit more like hands-off. And if you're hands-off at the scene of a fire, you're just sort of promoting people to do what they want to do. Little people start wandering around. And it's always well-meaning. Nobody's trying to be a bum. Nobody's trying to sneak out of work. But they're trying to do more than they should be doing. And all of a sudden, a Mayday comes in, you turn around, you got a lieutenant and 1 firefighter. Where's the rest of your team? Oh, Chief, I just sent them around the back. They thought they heard. And now suddenly things get messed up. Now there's a delay in your RIT team.
And let's talk about just that. You're talking about controlling the good, firm incident commander that, like you said, controls some things. when you recognize as a senior officer, not old, just, time on a job officer, as a chief officer, let's talk about that person, recognizes that Rick over here is, man, he's new at running fires. He's one of my newer, and, this is where the teamwork, this is where a good boss, like yourself will like sew yourself to that person's side. And all of a sudden it becomes a team right next to each other, working that Mayday, working that event. Good captains, good lieutenants come up, right? They come up, what do you need, boss? If you think they get along at a good working fire before, throw a Mayday in there, and the good ones just, man, oh man, they rise to the surface, they come together, and they don't let anyone fail because they know what's at the other line, at the other, the line of a failure is a firefighter death. So having that, if you're a good seasoned officer, don't forget, you get that younger officer or younger experienced officer that ends up, this is your time to step up and be their partner. You don't have to kick them out of the car, but be their partner and just be a good team player and make sure they're not missing something,
Right. And we've all done that. You roll up, in the FDNY, maybe the all hands chief, you're the second chief arriving at a job. And sometimes you get sent in and sometimes you don't, depending on what's going on. And I remember many times, making a little suggestion, say, did your secondaries underway yet? Or did you hear 11 truck on the roof giving that report? Or little things like that, just to help somebody along who's, just getting their legs. They're just getting some experience, But that's another problem. And I hate to use the word problem, but that's another downfall sometimes of a RIT operation is an inexperienced, moving away from the incident commander, an inexperienced RIT team, an inexperienced RIT officer. So well-trained, well-equipped, but they haven't really been deployed. They've been to 3 or 4 or 5. Maybe they go to 2 or 3 a month as the RIT team. Set everything up, drag the Stokes down there, put the saw in there, get the rope, stand by, listen up, and they go through the motions, but they never actually set foot inside a building on fire as the team. We just got a RIT pack recently, and I was amazed at how big and heavy it was. Even though we've been talking about trying to make it lighter and easier, it's still a big, gigantic, heavy piece of equipment that you suddenly have to carry or drag in with you going to find a firefighter where you really want to move quickly. It's probably the slowest you're ever going to move inside of a building,
Oh, absolutely.
And it's stuff you got to get used to. You got to get used to deploying and moving in and finding somebody and still having all the gear with you and making the transmissions when you find them. Ladder 6, fast to command. I think we found a down firefighter. We're on the second floor, and all difficult stuff. If you've ever do it, you could go to 100 RIT operations as the RIT team. And if you never get deployed and find a firefighter, you'll never know what to say in the radio, of course, unless you train on it. And who trains that far into the RIT? Most of the time they just practice the RIT skills, the RIT drag.
It's over as quick as it started. Right.
Right.
Well, so, I mean, and just for our listeners, well, we decided early on here in the show that the title of the show is going to be Not Everyone Survives a Mayday. That does not mean it is okay to not survive a Mayday. It does not mean it's, well, hey, some things are just going to happen right off and all. What we're saying is be prepared, because everything you do sometimes, as Dr. Shea would say, they're non-survivable injuries. There's stuff that happens. I guess, John, the next step would be, to not allow anything else to happen. What I'm saying? It's like Eddie Enright used to say, cover and contain during tactics and strategy. Cover the building with as many firefighters, as much water as possible, contain it to the room of origin, floor of origin, building of origin. Well, during a RIT or Mayday, our goal should be to contain it, if it's that first level, like we talked about 3 degrees of Mayday, to just a single, because how many times we've seen a second or third firefighter get jammed up going after another firefighter. And now, we lose 2 firefighters because it's the drowning. The dad that went out to save the kid, now the dad and the kid dies, that.
And Don has that. Don has that information. How many RIT team members end up giving a Mayday? There's an established number on that. Yeah.
Oh, exactly. So the goal should be, as it is, to keep the fire in the original room, floor, building. We should be keeping this to the original single Mayday, if that's what it was in this particular case. And that means everything that John just talked about for our listeners, all those key points he made about why and how things go wrong and where maybe someone might not make it out of a Mayday. I guess those are the gold nuggets or the chestnuts you always talk about. That those are the things, folks, you should be writing down, going, okay, I've trained, I've done this, I've done this, I've done this. I need to go back over and I need to reemphasize that part of my training, that stuff. I need to do some tabletops with my guys. We need to talk more about this stuff and
Great
why this
training
doesn't
points,
happen.
great RIT training points, all the points we brought up. Those are the more likely areas that something may not work out right.
And again, to the bosses out there, again, it's God, we pray and hope you never have to go through that. Oh my God, hope you never have to go through that. When you do, this is where everything you've practiced for, this is where everything that you've trained for, this is where everything you've read about, talked about, everything you've played, everything you've pretended to do is going to be realistic, and it's going to be difficult. Surround yourself with a good team. Call for help. John, you say it all the time, call for help, call early. I always say, think big. Do not turn around and see an empty street with nobody there because you thought I could finish this with a 2-in-1 response, 2-engine, 1-truck response. This is the time you should turn around and you should have people pulling up, getting off the rigs or standing in the street. If your mutual aid or automatic aid is a distance, you've said it before, John, then call damn early. We can always what? We always said it. We can always send them home, right?
And you know what's interesting, and it's not a knock on them at all, but with PD, law enforcement, with all these shootings, whether they're mass shootings, whether it's just a kid getting shot somewhere or an adult found on the side of the road shot, or just a single gunplay between two people. When there's a shooting, when there's a crime, murder, a serious injury, you see the aerial photographs now. You literally see 40, 50 separate police cars, unmarked, marked, parked in every direction. And I'm saying to myself, really, what are 50 separate cop cars doing here at a shooting between one guy and one guy? It's over. It's not a standoff. It's over already. And there's 50 police cars there. Why? Because they overdo and over dispatch and overstaff everything. And you know what? They never run short. And they call people in from 2 or 3 different towns. You see state police cars, you see the local police, you see the neighboring police department there. And I was always amazed that, in some big operations, 4th and 5th alarms, we do that. But we should do it earlier in our operations and with a particular emphasis on RIT operations. We should always make sure we have a RIT team. And if it's only 3 people, then you should augment it right there. Call another mutual aid company for RIT. And when they get there, say, Chief, we only got 3. That's good. Well, I already got 3. So your 3 is going to make 6. Thank you. Now I got my 6-man team. And if you did that all the time, you know what? It wouldn't be a big deal. I'd say, yeah, this guy Salka, he does it all the time. He always makes sure there's 6 guys here. And suddenly, after 9 years, Mayday, Mayday, Mayday one night, and you'll be the guy shining because you'll be the chief that has a 6-person RIT team, or you'll be the captain that has a 4-person RIT team, and they are trained to the moon and back. And they're so good, you're like, oh no, that guy from Park Ridge, where do you see them go? They know what they're doing because you got a reputation of training hard and training realistic. So that's the solution. That's the answer to all these roadblocks we talked about. The solution is training and attitude,
Well,
a positive attitude and a plus attitude.
And if you're lucky enough to go your entire career without never been on the scene, having been on the scene for a real live Mayday or having to manage one, God bless you. And I guess my question has been, John, we've talked about before, if you set it up and you have plenty of people there and you have your RIT teams in place and 20, 25 years goes by and nothing happens. If 20 years from now, if you have one Mayday and the RIT team gets in there and makes a rescue, was it worth the 20-year wait? And if you say no, get the hell out of the fire service. You know what I'm saying? Right. It absolutely was worth the wait. There are cops that, you said this before, there are cops that have a gun full of bullets that never shoot a real bullet at a real bad guy, but yet they still have their pistol loaded. There are, we carry all kinds of things just in case and what if. Why not have the RIT team ready to go, ready to be there? We talk about expect fire. Train for the firefighter down scenario. Train for something not going right. When everything goes right, you go back, have a cup of coffee, go, oh, that went well. And if something goes wrong, man, all the troops are amassed on the front lines, and off you go. Boom, you're done. So,
yep.
Hey,
so true.
John, before we wrap up here, let's mention. Let's throw the website out one more time, buddy. I know you're okay with it for supporting Spring Valley firefighter Jared Lloyd. Was killed in a fire not recently, and you said wife's pregnant and already 2 kids.
Right.
15 years
out of the bombing. Yep.
15 years. I'm telling you, a lot of people in love with this guy. We said it early on, folks. Any firefighter death is horrible and traumatic and just horrible. This one, they're doing a fundraiser. They're selling T-shirts. You have till April 24th, 11:59 p.m. Eastern time to get your order in. It's well worth it. Every penny goes to his family. Every penny goes to his family. The website, once again, is supporting SV Firefighter Jared Lloyd itemorder.com/sale. Again, play this back or go to my Twitter feed and look at I pushed it out there. Billy Goldfeder did. Support it. I know the title of the show, John, was Not Everybody Survives a Mayday, but I know how you and I feel. We want everybody to survive one. We just want people to be ready for when things don't go right, man, when things don't go right. So, hey, what email address for them to get a hold of you at?
ChiefJohnSalka@gmail.com.
Oh, and one last, where can they get the 20-year anniversary 9/11 coin for the memorial there, right where you're at?
And you know what? And that's a really good question. And I don't have that. I don't have that pad in front of me. I'm gonna have to pass on that for a minute. We'll give it next. We'll give it next time around.
And I actually, that's my bad, buddy. I kind of set you up there because I have it right in front of me. I don't know,
the WBG and Y911.
Oh, what the hell I was thinking. I asked you for it and I had the damn thing in my hand. So I'm sorry, buddy. That's my bad. www.wbgny. So that's W William, B Boy, G George, N or Y Young. So WBGNY911.org. $20 coin. All the proceeds, John, go to the memorial right there.
To the memorial in Washingtonville, which is to the 343 firefighters and all the police officers and all the EMS people. It's to all the first responders.
And now
we are augmenting with a second memorial, which is going to bear the names of the post 9/11 illnesses and injury guys that are dying now. And we already have 3 in our local community, including my good friend Ray Phillips from Rescue 3. So that's going to be hopefully done. I just spoke to the memorial people the other day that are building it, that are building the stone, etching the stone. So they're shaping it and they're constructing it. And we're going to have it in the ground and dedicated by 9/11 this year. And that's where most of the funds are going to go, to getting that to built and the walkway built to it and the lighting and the engraving.
Absolutely. So ChiefJohnSalka@gmail.com.
And if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to contact me at ChiefJohnSalka@gmail.com. And I'd be happy to answer any more questions or get coins to you or send pictures of it or whatever it is you need.
And I promise I won't. Like I said, I had that right in front of me, folks. And I asked John about, I'm like, what the hell am I doing? I had it right in front of me. I was going to read it. But all right, I'm at ChiefLasky@gmail.com. And John and I both always ask you at the end of all of our shows to please keep the men and women serving armed forces in your thoughts and prayers. And right now, as well as our brothers and sisters in our law enforcement family, in your thoughts and prayers. We lost a Texas DPS state trooper recently. He just passed away, and family kept him alive to be able to donate organs. What another hero. And he pulled over to assist a motorist, and before he got a car, the guy got out and shot him through the windshield, the chest and the head. And young man, young family, another trooper, another police officer taken from us. So, hey, folks, remember this. John and I say it all the time. Never forgetting means never forgetting. Be safe. God bless you, and catch you next time.